All right. One more time. Take two. I'm joined now by my man in the back, Danny Segura. There he is. Bang, bang. Finger gunning it like Jair Bolsonaro. He does the finger guns a lot.
Does he?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
No.
He's always doing one of these numbers.
Oh,
he's like that guy at the party.
I'll stop doing it now.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's talk about this. What do you make of Alistair versus Derek Lewis? You got to love that, yes?
I'm all in. Yeah, it makes sense. Alistair, I mean, we were just talking about last episode how this was like a career-defining fight for him, right, at UFC Beijing, and he passes the test with flying colors, an undefeated guy against an undefeated guy, which is amazing. Alistair Overeem, in many ways, is kind of like Andrei Arlovski. He has many lives, dude.
Yeah, the thing is,
Can't count him out.
I know people have been like, oh, well, he beat a guy he was supposed to beat. Right, but that's the point. Look at how he beat him. He beat him how a prime Overeem, well, I'm not prime exactly, but certainly he beat him as a very capable Overeem would, right? He didn't just scrape by. He didn't just get a win. He dominated
annihilated him.
Yeah.
Which is super impressive.
Right.
I mean, 12 dudes, I believe the guy had a 12-0 record.
Yeah.
12 other dudes tried to do that, and they failed. In fact, they got knocked out in the first round.
Right.
So pretty impressive, man. Overeem. Is it a thing with heavyweights that they get these second lives, or what is it? I don't know. Same thing with Junior Dos Santos. For a second, we thought he was gonna sort of fade away, and then he came back.
It's hard to say. Partly, I think it's just the nature of the division, but also a guy like Overeem has just reinvented himself.
Yeah.
Because he's very, very clever.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of these guys just kind of figure out a new way to compete. They're still pretty good at it, because Overeem, you go back and you watch, it's a kickboxing contest, but watch his win over Badr Hari. He's just marching people down and throwing these heavy hooks in the pocket. It's not really what he does now. He's much more subtler, but highly effective. And also his ground and pound. Jesus Christ. Did you hear the audio on that thing, on that first right hand that landed? Sounded like someone smashed him over the head with a tire iron.
And it's crazy. Every time he goes kind of on a bad streak, you can see how he reinvents himself. When he had those losses, when he was getting knocked out by Travis Brown and all that, he came back and all of a sudden he was using a lot of distance and staying away. Then he has, a few losses, and now he comes back and now he's putting on the pressure. He brought back the knees that made him great, the knees to the stomach from the clinch.
Yeah.
There was a few against the cage that landed pretty solid.
Yeah, he looked good.
Yeah.
All right, these calls. Apparently, I have angered the female listenership.
Yeah, bro.
Can't believe that.
What's up with that?
You know what? It worked.
It did work.
I trolled them into calling.
Yeah.
I take full responsibility and credit.
Yeah.
Both. All right, what do we got here?
All right,
Kick us
so
off
we got tons of questions. Very good questions. These questions just keep getting better, and also the timing of the questions keeps dropping, which is amazing. So up first,
what do you mean?
As far as how long they take to
yes,
get their question out there. I guess the length. So let's start with Golden Boy, and let's look at the overall picture, the overall event.
How you doing, Danny and Luke? This is Alex calling from Orlando, Florida. Luke, just want to make sure your allergies are doing okay this week. I hope they are. So I wanted to get your views on Golden Boy's production of the Liddell versus Ortiz interview, and then also wanted to see which fights or fighters stood out to you most between the prelims and the main card. Thanks, guys.
Okay, production. I would say for the production, look, man, it's not going to be UFC level. And Bellator is owned by Viacom. It's going to be a step down from that.
Mm-hmm.
So I compare it to low-level regional shows I've been to. And relative to that, it was pretty high. So that's why I said I give a grade of a C. I thought the on-screen graphics were pretty good. I thought that the in-arena atmosphere was pretty good. Not great, but passable to maybe even at points good. The use of the Limp Bizkit thing, that's just, what do you want me to say? But
who's in
the house? I know. God, I was like, wow, where are we?
Oh my God.
But I didn't think, look, you go on Twitter and everyone's like, oh my God, worst thing ever. It's not the worst thing ever.
It's not.
However, it definitely had some shortcomings, but it had some positives too, I thought.
I like the production. Look, you can't compare it to the UFC. The UFC is a machine that operates, and they have been doing this for years. They got a recipe down on how to, have these events.
Also, they have money.
Yeah, they have money.
Tons of money.
Yeah. And I think more importantly than money, just experience. Like the UFC has been doing this for years.
Mm-hmm.
This is Golden Boy's first event, so you got to cut them some slack. But overall, I thought it was a pretty solid event. I thought they could have done a few things that were easy to do, and it would have improved the event a lot more. Like not having the dismantling of the ring at the same time the press conference is going, the post-fight conference, and just the way how to set up those media events. I think they could have done a little bit better. But as far as the product on fight night, I thought it was good, and it had a boxing feel with like the 3D graphics in the arena when they zoom out with the camera.
Yep.
That's very boxing-esque. The hexagon they brought, right? That's
six-sided, yeah.
Yeah. Overall, I thought it was a pretty complete product. Like,
by and large, it's pretty good.
I graded it a C+.
He asked,
78.
C+ is fine, I think. Yeah. They also asked like who impressed you most on the card from the prelims. Deron Wynn.
Yep.
Deron Wynn looked like, I mean, first of all, that's not even close to the right weight class for him.
He's my height. Okay.
Is he really?
Yeah, 5'7".
Chiquitico.
Fighting at 205.
Okay. Like I said, not even close to the right weight class. Yeah. Tom Lawler had a bit of a layoff, but is a very experienced, credentialed opponent. Yeah. And even Tom Lawler took his hat off to him. I think very highly of Deron Wynn. That one caught my attention. I want to see more from him. I want to see more from him maybe at middleweight or even welterweight. Maybe 205 is a little too big, but he appears to be the genuine article.
I think he could be like the, body type of like Josima Pajares or like Hector Lombard at middleweight. Those guys were about 5'8", 5'7", I think.
And look, Cormier is small for a heavyweight.
Yeah. And he's super successful.
Exactly. If you got the speed and you got a good athleticism, you can do some things.
Yeah, but I do think 205 is probably not the right weight class. And he looks like he carries a little bit of body fat on. I think he could probably trim down to 185. Yeah.
All right.
And I would agree. He was the most impressive.
He looked awesome.
Yeah, he looked great. All right, let's talk about Liddell Ortiz, but what that speaks about the commission, which is a point that you brought up.
Yes.
Great question, by the way.
Hello, this is Jesse Morgan from Ontario, Canada, and I'm a huge Chuck fan, and I was not thrilled with what I saw last night. My main question is the follow-up on a comment you made on your Sirius XM show, or it was the MMA Hour. I forget which one. What do you think this says about commission oversight in MMA? Because to me, Chuck Liddell couldn't even throw a punch properly. He couldn't stand up. He looked like he should not have been competing at any level. I felt Ken Shamrock could have beat him at 53 or 54, whatever age he is now. And I say that with no disrespect to Ken Shamrock or Chuck Liddell. Like, this was CM Punk bad. So what does this say about commission oversight in MMA when the best commission let Chuck Liddell fight? Thank you very much. I'm a big fan of the show.
All right.
A longtime Chuck fan still. Chuck
okay.
forever.
Okay.
Chuck forever.
All right.
Chuck is one of the greats. It is a weird question because
it's not a weird question. It's a very important question.
No, I said like weird in the sense of I'm sure there are tests that you can, physical tests that you can pass. Like I'm sure Chuck Liddell was a healthy, human being, and I'm sure he ate well and trained right, and he could pass those tests, right? But then I feel like those tests are still very limited into judging whether a fighter or not should be in the cage. Because, for example, any fighter that wants to start fighting, they, or at least in most states, they have to have a certain amount of amateur fights first. So it's not just about being healthy. It's about knowing whether you can fight or not. That's why you're throwing in the amateurs. That's why they wear shin pads and headgears and whatnot, right? So, I don't know. It is an interesting question. What do you make of it?
I think that these commissions are up against a challenge that they are not quite sure how to handle. I've made this point before, and no one really wants to. MMA media is funny because all of the money in clicks is like so-and-so said something about X, said something about Y, or breaking a big fight, and that's all fine. Like, that's an important part of the game, and I get it. But there's some bigger, broader questions to be asked here, which is, what is the proper role of commissions? I think you need commissions. You absolutely, at its core, you need them. I mean, you need a license to cut hair in this country. You absolutely need a license to be a promoter. And the fact that Dana White had to go on ESPN's Get Up and explain to them, well, look, we didn't – people – okay, so I work at SiriusXM, right? And this is a major media organization too, but SiriusXM, most of the sports that they cover there is all, football and basketball. Bro, I cannot tell you – I'm talking about ordinary people. These are not stupid people. These are smart, capable sports media professionals. I cannot tell you how many of them came up to me and were certain that the Connor stuff at the Barclays Center with the dolly was all staged. And I tried to explain to them, it's like, I understand your position about why you might think that, but you need to know that if they ever got caught doing that, they'd lose their license.
Oh, it'd be a huge scandal.
It would be a scandal beyond scandals. It would put them out of business.
Dude, people got injured, like.
Yeah, of course. And by the way, even this, you see the guys at Boca Juniors who got the bus broken. You see some of their injuries, by the way?
Yeah.
Corneal abrasions.
Dude.
I was like, corneal abrasions, the same ones that Ray Borg got. Yeah. Exact same ones.
I mean, it was like the same situation. Did you see a video of the bus passing by?
Yeah, they're just getting pelted.
Dude, they were getting bricks thrown at the window.
It's ridiculous. Okay, but here's my point. So you need a commission to license these people. You need a commission to prevent self-dealing. You need a commission to do some kind of modicum of tests and to make sure that when X fights Y, that this is a reasonably fair matchup, right? You need those things. But on the same, by the same account, there are clear limits to its usefulness. For example, why are we still waiting for the Nevada Athletic Commission to decide what to do with what happened at UFC 230, whatever it was, 229? This is absurd. What are you guys, the FBI? You Robert Mueller? You need more time? You need to subpoena witnesses to figure out who did wrong here? It's super not difficult, and they drag this out, and they assert their authority, and it's a demeasuring contest, and it's absurd. That's one problem. Here's another problem. You've got this confederacy of commissions. Hear me out, Danny. I see you getting bored with the answer. You have this confederacy of commissions, and you've now enshrined into the law rules. Well, how do you change your rules? It's super difficult. Now the commissions don't talk to each other. We don't even know what the rules of MMA should be. We haven't even figured it out yet, and we've already handed that power back to the states. As it pertains to this question, what is the right answer? Dude, here's the truth. I'm not even sure the commissions know. Good commissions, hardworking commissions, honest commissions, smart commissions, of which the California State Athletic Commission is, by and large. I think they look at this problem and they're like, this donk's 48. Here's the test that we have. Are these good enough? I guess. Probably not.
Yeah.
And what's the answer? I don't think anybody knows.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody knows because no other sport asks 48, 49-year-old men to go fist fight.
I think there needs to be educated people in MMA. They need to take a look at also the fight itself. Like I can't possibly see Chuck Liddell getting the green light to fight another MMA fight in a different state, right? Or even in California. Like you have to look beyond the physical aspects and ensure that they pass this test and sort of the science. Just look at the fights, right? Chuck Liddell is a fighter that should not be competing at this stage, and I think previous performances need to be kept in account.
By the way, what did you make of my opening weigh-in? It's like, oh, you should never tell. Well, you should rarely tell. You should be very careful about it, but never? That seems insane to me.
Yeah, that seems insane because once you put never, certain guys may push it, right? Oh, I'll just keep fighting, and You need to protect fighters from themselves. That's why you have referees in there. That's why there's certain protocols, and that's one of them. I think, and I think, I want to make this point as well. If the commissions are there to protect fighters, right, and they're still allowing them to compete, there needs to be put some blame, or not blame, but some weight on promoters as well. Like, look, if Oscar De La Hoya is saying he really cares about MMA. I mean, I understand for this specific fight, we did not know what was in store, although we had some signs and some ideas of what it was going to look like. But moving forward, because I know some people are still debating that Chuck is good to fight. I mean, if you really care about MMA, you can't possibly give him a contract. I don't think that's ethical.
Get ready for this one. So everyone's like, oh, well, they went to California. Dude, California is good. Yep. They're trying. I know Andy Foster is trying, which is all I can ask. On some level, I suppose. Wait for this one. What if Chuck decides to keep going and finds a promoter who's willing to put him on, whether it's De La Hoya or somebody else in Texas or someplace? I mean, what's stopping him? You think Texas is going to say no? Yeah. Please, come on.
That's why promoters need to, and I think media has a role as well in voicing this,
Yeah, a lot of these, I know we kind of play around with this like, oh, I'd watch that. We need to kind of start saying, yeah, maybe that's not a good idea. And, oh, are you being a hater? Look at me. Look at me. Put the camera on me. Ready? Right now. Yes, I am being a hater. That's right. Okay. Next question.
All right. Let's keep the Chuck Tito talk going.
Good morning, Mr. Luke Thomas. This is Charles Jalen calling out of Atlanta, Georgia. My question is about the Chuck versus Tito 3. Do you feel that the pay-per-view would have done better with more marquee names on it, or was it doomed regardless for the simple fact that you had Chuck and Tito as the main event? Would it have done better if you had, let's say, Pitbull on there or Michael Chandler's name on there? Just let me know your thoughts about that. Thanks for taking my call.
So Chandler, obviously, with Bellator, so that's not going to go down. But let's pretend there was other bigger names out there.
How about this one? How about Eddie Alvarez, right? Let's say he did a 1-over before going to 1 or something. It definitely would have helped with the credibility.
Yeah.
Absolutely would have helped with the credibility. I've been like, you know what? Eddie Alvarez, as legit as they come, he's on this card.
Yeah.
That probably would have helped if you had Demetrius Johnson. I mean, if you had Demetrius Johnson on there, that would have been a major validator.
Sure. Yeah.
Would it have been a game changer in pay-per-view? Would have helped. No doubt about it. Would have helped.
Yeah.
Hard to say would be a game changer, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the fight to sell was that one, right? Was Chuck Liddell's comeback to MMA and, this big rivalry that's, a decade long. And I think that was the bigger point. But I'd like to make a point that I kind of like that Golden Boy is doing this or did this because we don't know if they're going to have more events.
Yeah.
Of just making it a one-fight card, basically, like the main attraction. I just want to see
that.
Yeah, I just want to see different stuff, different things tried out in MMA. I think, all the promoters, try to just stack their cards as much as possible. And, why not have just, the main card, the main fight, just be it, basically, and make the pay-per-view cheaper. I mean, it gives the platform for someone like Deron Winn, who I had no idea who he was before, and now I know who he is because, I saw him fight rather than have a recognizable name. You know what I'm saying?
I'll amend that slightly.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. I don't need 50 fights.
Yeah.
I need a main and a co-main. Give me 2 fights. How about that?
Yeah.
2 fights.
But I'm okay with, trying new stuff and just having being the fight. Because look, Deron Winn came out, as for the hardcores, for the people that tuned in, came out as a recognizable name now moving forward.
I think so. I would say, how about this?
Yeah.
Give me a main and a co-main, drop the price a little bit in the pay-per-view, and maybe we can work with this. That sound about fair to you?
I would say, yeah, that sounds fair. No amateur fights, though.
You didn't like that? Keeps the card cheap.
That's true. And also, the amateurs are the locals who bring in the people to buy the ticket.
Bro, that's how it works around here.
Yeah. That's true. All right. This is probably final Ortiz Liddell question.
Hey, Luke, it's Bryce calling from Coast MMA, just giving you a shout out of Vancouver, BC. Just wanted to ask you, was the Chuck Liddell fight the most depressing moment in MMA? Thanks a lot. Love your show.
No.
I would say no.
No, it's not. I've seen some way worse ones.
I mean, there's people that have died, weight cutting and stuff, obviously, like in smaller promotions.
That's not
that itself.
That's not what they mean by
bad.
depressing. By depressing, they mean a slow motion train wreck. They don't mean a true calamitous devastation.
Right.
They mean something that just makes you sad, not something that sort of like shocks the conscience. No, I've seen some other ones. Do you know this name? The hardcores, the super hardcores. Do you know who Fire Harada is?
Nope. What era is that?
That's pre your era.
Okay.
There used to be this Japanese dude named Fire Harada who he did MMA and kickboxing. He would be the guy who would show. You know how like the Japanese are a little bit more forgiving of losses if you show like tremendous spirit.
Yeah, of course.
He was sort of that guy, except he would fight until he was basically like it was like Weekend at Bernie's with that dude. So at the very end of Fire Harada getting picked up, they put him in, and the Japanese are just ruthless.
Yeah.
They'd put him in there with some 20-year-old stud who would knock him the F out brutally, and he'd get up and like he would refuse to go down. He would just get viciously tore up. He's this old dude, man. It's like, dude, watching an old dude like Fire Harada get worked over, I don't derive pleasure from this, man. This ain't unless he said the N-word and this is World Star and someone is like raining down fists of justice upon him. I don't really have an appetite for watching old men get beaten up. It's not my thing.
Now that you mention it, Japanese MMA, a few examples have come up. I mean, towards the end, Sakuraba's career was just rough to watch, man, because this was a guy like Chuck Liddell, a legend, and he was just getting fed to the wolves, and he was just taking beatings. It was really bad.
And they would put him, they would stitch him together with KT tape. They'd be like, Jesus, man.
And he would walk out there with his knees all taped up, and oh my God.
I'm laughing at him. I'm laughing because it's just shocking, but yeah, I mean, and also on the
or Gabby Garcia fighting, 53-year-old woman, or that's like 100 pounds lighter than her.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen things that made me sad. I've seen guys who really wanted to make it to the UFC and couldn't. I've seen them cry backstage. That always hurt me. I've seen guys who just were so many fighters through their and everyone in their 20s is poor, but just living in abject poverty, trying to make it, and then cleaning floors with bleach at the gym so they could get free tuition to go, and then they never make it anywhere. And I've seen it, man. I've seen it, and it breaks my heart. But for a legend, Fire Harada was not a legend. Chuck Liddell was a legend.
Yeah.
For him to be in this state, he deserves better.
Yeah.
He deserves better. And I understand he is programmed this way. Dude, he needs to be exalted wherever he goes. I don't want to be having these conversations about Chuck Liddell. And that kind of hurts me too.
Yeah, it does. As I mentioned to you before the start of the show, most of my Twitter timeline, the reaction, all the tweets had sad in it. Chuck Liddell and sad should never be in the same sentence. That dude was truly one of the greats. He was like the first rock star, like the first guy that was in MMA and crossed into pop culture like Conor McGregor. Like, everybody knew who Chuck Liddell was, Even if you didn't watch any of his fights, he was in commercials. He was everywhere. He would have cameos on shows. And just to see how high he was in MMA, and he was the man at one point, and now watching this performance, it was rough.
Can I say one more thing? We'll go to the next question.
Go for it, yeah.
We're not saying enough good things about Tito. Now, Tito blocked me on Twitter however long ago. Which is fine. It doesn't bother me at all. It's good. As I've said before, as a man who blocks a lot of people, Danny Segura, I take no umbrage with being blocked. I encourage it, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. You can't hate it.
Oh no,
if you're doing it.
Gotta love the practice. Not everyone's meant for everybody else.
Yeah,
I believe that. But here's the deal: Tito keeps getting the last laugh on people. Have you noticed this?
Yeah, he does.
Dude, everybody.
His longevity is amazing.
Dude, everybody kind of clowns him online. I've said it before. You go to the arena, you don't feel that at all. He got a second act in Bellator. Okay, he couldn't beat Liam McGeary, but he got a nice win over Chael Sonnen. He got a nice win over Stephan Bonner. He comes here, he gets a nice win over freaking Chuck Liddell. Dude, this guy's second act, third act, whatever act this is in MMA, it's better than almost anything I've seen from anybody else who's been in the game this long. Tito Ortiz will surprise. He is way more cunning,
dude,
than he
he's
gets
still
credit.
Competitive. Against McGeary, he was doing well until he got caught in that reverse triangle.
Yeah.
Tito Ortiz is still a competitive fighter. Which is crazy.
He doesn't get any credit for it. Tito deserves a lot of credit.
I mean, just look at Chuck Liddell and Tito. Like, that fight itself, like, those guys are from the same era, and it was night and day.
Yeah.
All right. So enough about that. Let's move on to a few questions, other questions.
All right, let's do it.
UFC Beijing.
Beijing.
Hey, my name is Thomas, calling from California. I was wondering what your thoughts are on Francis Ngannou. It was a fast fight, and we've seen zero wrestling, zero takedown defense. Blade's never shot on him. So what are your thoughts on that?
So I understand what this caller's saying. Sure, we didn't see much as far as like where he's at skill-wise, but I think we saw what was most important. Ngannou is no longer gun-shy, or at least for that fight, which that's pretty significant because his fight with Derek Lewis was a completely different fighter. At least we saw the real Francis Ngannou, right?
I don't know.
He was out there swinging, man.
Okay, for 25 seconds.
Okay, but he was still for the Derek Lewis fight. You could say it was a different
100%. It was better than that. Well, I couldn't possibly argue otherwise.
It was a different attitude.
100%. Let me see. So here's what I'm saying. Are you saying, Luke, that he is still the person that he was in the Lewis fight? No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, number one, definite improvement from that. But number two, I need to see him tired. How does he look again when he's tired? I need to see his wrestling. How does he look when he wrestles? Number one, there should be an improvement generally, just from what he was, from the last Blades fight or whatever, for the first one. And more to the point, if he's truly recovered from that little spell he had, then let's see it play it out under more duress. I need to see all the different bases of duress addressed before I can really declare, oh my God, he's back, he's fully back. Mm-hmm. So to your point, did he look better? Were there some signs to tell you, okay, this is This is something.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
All of them, not even close.
I agree with you, but the questions leaving the Derek Lewis fight weren't, does he have wrestling? Can he go, all 15 minutes? The question was, why is he not swinging? Why is he not engaging? Is he afraid of fighting? For me, with the Curtis Blades fight, I saw a guy that wanted to fight. I saw a guy that wasn't scared of engaging.
Sure.
And he was putting on the pressure, and he was swinging hard. So
Fatigue will change these equations, though.
Yeah.
So to your point, he had a much better attitude from the word go. And look, maybe you make him tired, and to your point, he's back. He's great. He looks awesome.
Yeah.
This would be amazing. I am okay with this. I'm simply saying, until you've seen it, given some of the duress we saw, the answer is not yes or no. It's, I don't know. Let's wait and see.
All right. Now let's get a follow-up question here for Mr. Ngannou.
Hey, this is mouth-breathing Mike from Connecticut, and
He's
I just
back.
wanted to ask, what do you think is next for Francis Ngannou? Junior Dos Santos, Alexander Volkov, Stipe Miocic, Enzo Gracie? What do you think? Thanks.
So definitely not Renzo Gracie. Shouts out to mouth-breathing Mike. He's back. He hasn't called in a while.
Did he call from his baby monitor?
Probably, yeah.
Or from Mars? Where did he call from? The bottom of the ocean?
Yeah, more
More or less,
from
yeah.
Connecticut.
Yeah, well, Connecticut, exactly.
Yeah. So who's next? Who do you think Francis Ngannou should fight?
Man, do you run back the Lewis fight?
Definitely not.
And Hunt's going to be gone because
By the way, I like Lewis over Reem. I think
it's a great fight. I would have said Mark Hunt, but Mark Hunt's contract's about to be up this coming weekend, right? So that's out.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. He's still in the elite space. Do we do a Stipe rematch? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense either.
Trying to pull up the division right now.
I'm not really sure what the answer is there. God, the Blades one was the one that made it was good for the time, I suppose. I'm not really sure. I wouldn't mind Overeem versus Ngannou again, by the way. If Arlovsky wins, you could maybe run that back this weekend. Tai Tuivasa is out there.
Okay, that'd be a fun one,
right?
Actually.
Ngannou versus Tuivasa.
Tuivasa's fighting JDS, right?
Yeah. Or if JDS wins, you could do JDS versus Ngannou.
Yeah.
There's a couple of other options out there.
The Volkov one is interesting too because Volkov is super, rangy and tall, and they're both really big dudes. And he's coming off a loss, obviously, against Derek Lewis. So maybe the matchup, on that sense, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But stylistically, it could be fun.
All right.
Now let's talk about Israel Adesanya and Anderson Silva.
Your favorite fight.
Yes. See, they're listening to the sound off, man. we got to keep this going. It's good for the promotion.
Hey, Luke. Hey, Danny. I'm Erica calling from Florida. See, chicks do listen to you guys on the regular.
Told you.
I'm a longtime fan of MMA. I even got my boyfriend into it 8 years ago.
Wow.
He's a lifelong martial artist in France, so I knew he'd love it. Hi, babe. Anyway, here's my question. Even though Mark Raimondi seems like a great guy and a quality journalist, how much abuse should we heap on him for suggesting the pointless and probably sad fight between Israel Adesanya and the legend, the elder statesman now, Anderson Silva? By the way, I warned Mark on Twitter that angry emojis are coming his way. Thanks, guys.
Wow. First of all, what a great question.
Yeah.
Jesus, that was amazing. What a voicemail, number one. Number two, feel free to heap scorn on Mark Raimondi just because.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
I mean, his pro wrestling tweets just make me want to jump out of a building, but there's lots of reasons to heap scorn on him. But okay, hold on. You have defended this idea.
Yeah.
The idea, you have made it reality. You're like Mystic Danny over there.
Yep.
¿Cómo se dice mystic en español? I don't know.
Místico.
Místico Segura.
Daniel Mercado.
All right. Your thoughts. You happy? You must be happy. You must be thrilled about this.
Of course. This is a fantastic fight. I think, and this is, here, I'm going to make a case here for Mr. Anderson Silva. I think we are underestimating Anderson Silva. I think there is a false image of Anderson Silva out there of what he currently is.
Word.
Let me put it to you this way. So after he lost his belt against Chris Weidman, right? He goes on to fight Nick Diaz. Fantastic fighter. Obviously, he was bigger. He was a bigger man because that fight was at 185. Nick Diaz going up.
That fight sucked, Danny.
He still beat him. He still got a win over an elite fighter. Right?
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Okay.
Then it got turned to a no contest because of the test, but nonetheless, it was.
I agree that beating Diaz is an elite fighter, but the trolls are going to say, well, Diaz hasn't won a fight in 5 years or something. How much does it really mean? I'm just saying.
No scrub gets a win over Nick Diaz.
I understand.
That's a fact.
I believe you.
Then he goes on and fights Michael Bisping and loses.
Controversially.
But yeah, does anyone remember that fight? I mean,
yes.
I would say the one who took the most punishment there was Bisping.
Yes.
He got knocked down. I mean, at one
dropped
point
at the end of the third.
Yeah, at one point we thought the fight was over and there was controversy there. Anderson Silva looked maybe not as he looked in his prime. Obviously, he would have. I think a prime Anderson Silva wouldn't have even gotten touched and would have finished the fight in the first round. But nonetheless, he looked good. He looked competitive and almost beat Bisping, who from then went on to become the middleweight champion. Okay. Then he goes on and fights Daniel Cormier, the champ.
On super late notice.
And goes to decision with a champ. How many fighters have been finished by Daniel Cormier? A lot.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling, probably Cormier will never admit to this, but I have a feeling Cormier didn't go 100% hard on Anderson Silva. But nonetheless, he went to a decision and, had some good moments.
Silva rocked him in the stomach. Remember that twice?
Yeah.
The only thing is Silva also stalled underneath with the lockdown.
Yeah, that's also true. But, still managed to go to distance with the champ. And then fights Derek Brunson, who I've, been very high of Derek Brunson. Still a controversial fight. It could have gone either way. People were split on the scorecards. But just the fact that it was competitive and you can make a case for either or means it's still there. I think there's this image out there that Anderson Silva's washed up. But to me, he's still a top 15 easy, maybe even top 10 middleweight. Is that crazy to say?
Yes.
Why? He just looked competitive, even if in his losses, he looked competitive.
Because this exercise you're doing, I can take anybody's resume and I can say, okay, here's your task.
No.
Hold on, let me finish. I can take anyone's resume, particularly if they're getting at the end, so now they're flagging a little bit. Because you would agree he's not at his peak powers, right? You would agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
I can go through the resume and I can say, I want you to characterize this as charitable, or I want you, other person, to characterize this in a negative way. I can play that game. I can go through all of those and I can give you a negative one. Now, who's right? In the end, it's an exercise. There's probably some middle ground there. Yeah. I grant you, we're not talking about a Chuck Liddell situation. But he's also been offered this PED issue again, contaminant supplement, whatever it was. He had the previous one. There's a belief that he was on that during his prime by some, and that now he is just not the same. Mm-hmm. And the issue is he got knocked out by Weidman or whatever, and then he had the terrible tragic incident with the shin. The issue is not that he's going there and just getting the doors blown off. The issue is that he's just not doing a lot. His output has declined significantly. His accuracy has declined significantly. People still revere him and fear him, so they don't really, to your point about Cormier, for example, they just try to take him down and ride it out. But in terms of like the potency of what made him good, I don't know how you can't argue that has dropped off a cliff.
He's of course, compared to what he was, at one point, nobody could believe what Anderson Silva was doing. So the version that he currently is, of course, it's a huge drop. But he was at such a high that I still feel like he's a top middleweight. Look at the rankings. You're telling me, number 15, Thiago Santos. You think Anderson Silva couldn't beat him? I think that's a competitive fight. Elias Theodoro, 14. I think that's a competitive fight. Uriah Hall.
I think all these guys beat him.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, see, I don't see it that way. I guess we'll find out.
Wow, I didn't know you were the president of the Anderson Silva fan club.
Yeah. Welcome. Look, I still think Anderson Silva is a competitive guy. I still think he can hang in with the top 15s. I still consider him a top 15 middleweight. I guess we'll find out. He hasn't been out for so long. I think obviously all the PED stuff and the drug test failures have tainted his career, and people probably see him on a worse light. But I think people are discounting him and thinking he's washed up, and I really don't. I think he's on a decline, sure, but I still think he's a pretty decent fighter.
We're gonna see. Yeah. You have registered your belief. We will evaluate it in due time.
We'll find out. All right. So let's talk about Anderson Silva versus Israel Adesanya, but on a different angle.
Okay.
Hey guys, this is Kelly from Long Island. With the talk of Silva and Adesanya, my husband and I are hoping you can settle a debate. Who do you think the UFC would prefer to win? He thinks Silva. The GOAT would be back, and it would propel him into a big money fight with Conor, GSP, or even a title shot. I think they want Adesanya to win. At this point in his career, Silva probably isn't the best litmus test for just how good Adesanya really is, but no doubt a victory over Silva would be a huge boost in visibility and legitimacy to the casual audience. It could be a star-making performance, especially as the local guy in Australia. Either way, it seems like a win-win for the UFC. And a loss to the GOAT or a loss to the next big thing seem like losses either guy could write off. What do you think? Thanks.
Bro,
as president of the Anderson Silva fan club, the answer is I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, of course, I think
Israel,
the easy one
yeah.
is Israel. He's the younger guy.
First of all, madam,
Yeah.
you are a genius. Your husband is a moron.
That's why she's calling.
That's why she called. First of all, great question. Well delivered. Well articulated. I have nothing to add to that other than divorce your husband. He is clearly of an unsound mind. Right? She nailed it, I thought.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you think very highly of Anderson, you still would favor Israel, right?
I would like to add, though, that if Anderson Silva wins, it wouldn't be the end of the world.
No. It would be,
It would
a setback.
actually-
It'd be a setback.
It would be a setback, but, I believe Adesanya is 29, if I'm not mistaken. So he's not super young, but I think in MMA years, he's very young, right? And, man, that would just put Anderson Silva. I feel like it would be – you remember when Tito Ortiz was, like, on a terrible losing streak, defeats Ryan Bader?
Yep.
And then all of a sudden he took a short notice fight against Rashad, and Rashad was at the top. And then all of a sudden where you're like, yo, could Tito possibly get a title shot?
Yeah.
There was those talks. I feel like it'd be kind of like that.
Yeah.
It would create some buzz around.
Probably.
Yeah. All right, now let's talk about officiating. Sounds good?
Hey there, Luke and Danny. It's Damon calling from Toronto, Canada. My question for you is this. Given how many fights we've been seeing, especially lately, where they're quite lopsided, I'm thinking about the Elkins fight in particular, where there's so much damage being meted out. And also given how young a sport mixed martial arts is, we haven't really got a chance to see what a lot of the pioneers are going to be like when they're in their 60s and 70s in terms of brain trauma, CTE, etc. Do you think eventually that the test that the refs impose will be, might switch away from intelligently defending oneself to a lesser standard, something like remaining competitive in the fight? Do you think that's where ultimately mixed martial arts will go in order to protect the safety of the fighters? You guys are doing a great job. You've really differentiated yourselves well from the old format, so really enjoying it. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Very nice question.
Yeah.
Very nicely stated. What do you think, Danny? You want to go first?
Yes. This is a really good question. I think we've always talked about how MMA is getting closer to boxing. Have you seen boxing stoppages? If you're an MMA fan and you often, for example, a lot of MMA fans were saying in the Mayweather-McGregor fight, that fight was stopped early. You know what I'm saying? I think in MMA, we've been accustomed to seeing a lot of punishment before fights get stopped. In boxing, it's usually like, hey, you're not competitive even if you're standing, and they'll call the fight off. Or after a certain amount of knockdowns. And I feel like eventually in the future, we're going to get closer to that. I think this you need to be constantly intelligently defending yourself idea is going to stop at one point. And at one point, like the Priscilla Cachoeira fight versus Valentina Shevchenko, I think at one point refs are going to be like, look, this is going nowhere. Fight's off.
Right.
What do you think?
I hope you're right, but I don't know that you are. You deserve to be right. You're absolutely right. First of all, you're right about the boxing part. I mean, you're 100% right about that. Because what they'll do in boxing is if you're losing, let's say 7 rounds in, and it's getting worse, and you're not showing any kind of, not even ability to hang, but like, what's the reason why this might change?
Yeah.
Like, if I can just keep, let's say you and I are boxing, we're the same size, Danny, and you're totally keeping me at the end of your jab, and I can't get inside. And the jabs are starting to get followed with crosses, and then jab, cross, hook, and then jab, cross, hook, uppercut. And I'm just getting torn up. And I can't find any answer, and we go.
Even if you're still standing.
Even if I'm still standing and I still want to fight, I'm not giving the referee any reason to think this is going to change. But then you get fights. You remember this guy? I think it was UFC Chile. It was Claudio Puelles. Remember him?
Oh yeah. I interviewed him after
right.
that.
The fight should have been stopped a number of times, but he hung on. I think he won by heel hook or something, something like that. And folks were saying it. I mean, remember what happened? The Raquel Pennington fight, she literally says, "I'm done," and they talk her out of it, and she goes and then gets demolished in that 5th round, whatever it was, and people had the audacity to defend that. I mean, it's the most shocking negligence I think I'd ever seen. Here's the reality: we are going to have to wait for something tragic to happen, because I have made this argument before that we need to amend the way in which we allow beatings to happen, and folks have said, no, you're going to rob someone of the opportunity to get a win. Okay. So here's what you are doing by incorporating that belief. You are courting disaster. So we are going to have to wait for disaster to happen before anyone decides, gee, maybe when people say they're done or there's other aspects to this fight that don't need to be continuing, then we'll call off the dogs. But it turns out that we have an appetite for disaster. So it's just what it's going to be.
And I feel like the factor that in MMA, I think there's a higher chance of a comeback in MMA than it is in boxing.
True.
Just out of the nature of that, you could do submissions, and there's so many other things in play, plus the smaller gloves. I think that plays in the referee's call, like, oh, you never know, this person might come back. He still wants to be in the fight. I think that plays in why we see MMA fights go longer, but I think it shouldn't. I think, at the end of the day, do we want to watch these guys compete? The answer is yes, right? That's why we all tune in. If so, fights need to be stopped earlier because, sure, Claudio Puelles had an amazing career win, and he'll remember that for the rest of his life. But the beating that he took, man, who knows what that'll be like or what effects it'll have, 30 years from now.
Yeah. The other thing is, I think a lot of these boxers, the good ones who might be winning and losing, they see themselves as, how long can I do this to make cash? And what do I need to do to be able to keep making cash? MMA fighters are like, what do I need to do to preserve my honor? What do I need to do to make sure that, forget the money, although that can play a role as well, to protect the sanctity of this experience. And I think it's going to take a bit of a shift, and I think it's going to take tragedy to get us there. All right, we have time for one more. Do we have one more?
Cool. Yeah. The Zone or... Never mind. I'll just go with the alternative.
Well, you really set that one up nicely, Danny.
Yeah. I mean, then I'd give away the question.
All right.
With the Zone,
hey,
we can
Luke
say
and
for
Danny,
another
this
day.
is
For another
Chris
day.
from Indianapolis, Indiana. And I have a question for you guys. So looks like UFC is going to be closing out 2018 pretty strongly, and I'm pretty excited about it. But UFC 231 has Max Holloway and Brian Ortega. Max Holloway has had issues trying to make it to Fight Night recently. Valentina Shevchenko and Joanna. Valentina has just had really bad luck getting to this women's flyweight belt. John Jones versus Gustafson. John Jones, if you ask him, probably would say that he has lots of bad luck. But also Chris Cyborg and Amanda Nunes. Both of them have had concerns making it to Fight Night. So my question to you guys is, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but do you both think that all four of these fights actually happen this year? Thanks.
Yes. What kind of a question is that?
So I would like to defend there Chris Cyborg. Chris Cyborg has only had issues really
at 140.
At 140 when they were forcing her to drop that low, right? So that's when we were like, oh, snap.
She had the USADA issue, but that was rectified and hasn't revealed itself since.
Exactly. So I don't think that's a worry. Amanda Nunes is fighting a weight class above. I would assume it's a much healthier training camp just because she doesn't have to deal with the weight cut. And she also specifically asked for the December date because remember, Cyborg wanted to fight earlier. So I think that fight, it's good to go. John Jones, Gustafson, I think it's good to go. I think almost every fight is good to go. The only one that I'm a little concerned about, just because we still don't have an answer to what happened with Max Holloway. Yeah, that's the only one that, because we still don't know what happened. The tests, they never revealed anything, but we knew something was clearly wrong.
I don't know why. I can't give you a good reason. I understand. I completely understand your skepticism. For some reason, I'm not really worried about it. I don't know why that is. I just have a feeling it's going to be fine, but maybe that's irrational. I don't know.
I have a feeling it's going to be fine too, and knock on wood. But that's the only fight out of those that he mentioned that I feel like, I have some reservations.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Talk the Zone or you're out of here?
No, I need to go. Oh, wait, what's the DAZN question? Just real quickly. All right, F it. Real fast.
All right, here goes. It's
hey,
short
Luke and Danny, this is Gavin from Springfield, Virginia, by way of Donegal, Ireland originally. Real quick, I just want to get your take on why you think the DAZN is a good move for Bellator, purely from an MMA perspective. With UFC going to ESPN, I can move to a lower tier in cable, save me $22 a month, pay $69 for the ESPN Plus, and I get a bunch more fights for a bunch less money. I have to chase DAZN. If I don't care about the boxing, why is it a good deal? Thanks, guys. Have a great day. Love the show.
The reason why the DAZN one makes sense is DAZN is certainly, first of all, DAZN is run by the guy who used to run ESPN. They have incredible ambition. Did you see this deal they signed with MLB?
No.
Do you know anything about American football?
Very little.
That's a very condescending question. I didn't mean it that way. What I meant is, do you know what NFL Red Zone is?
No, explain.
Or
maybe I do. I just don't know.
It's an amazing channel. You would love it, Danny. Okay. So here's how it works. The red zone is the last 20 yards before the touchdown area, right? That's when you're beginning to get in what's called scoring position. On football day, Sunday basically, there's one channel called NFL Red Zone. And all they do is monitor any game for any time someone's either in the red zone or about to score. It's awesome. You get all the best stuff that happens there. Whether they don't score, whether they do, they're right on that line.
But they let you know something may happen.
Right, and they go game to game to game to game to game, and it happens all day long. It's tremendous, okay? It's one of the coolest things that they do. They're going to do something like that on baseball night 7 days a week when the season is on DAZN. So they're not going to show you games, but you can fire up DAZN and get their version of that where they're showing you highlights, or if there's a no-hitter in place and they'll take you to it. Like, they're just going to be doing that kind of thing on the baseball side, which is a ridiculous thing to even try. 6-7 hour broadcasts they're going to be doing every single day. Amazing. Now they got the combat sports and other stuff. Dude, DAZN
did that for MMA.
I know, right? DAZN is making a pitch. And they're putting a ton of money into stuff. What's the value of Bellator going to DAZN? They've got a lot of extra money. They've got hungry partners. They can go make big signings. They can move away from pay-per-view, which is something that UFC is still stuck in. It's a great differentiation. Dude, I've clowned their name over and over again. I get it. But I really like their product. I like their energy. I like what they're doing. I am a customer of DAZN. I pay for it. I have high hopes for them. I really do.
Yeah. I do too. And you forgot to cross your arms as you said DAZN. But I would like to add, I know this caller doesn't like the boxing aspect, but please, I encourage you. I mean, Canelo's on there.
Anthony Joshua.
I mean, DAZN is turning out to be a very complete package.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. And I think maybe if you're not into boxing, okay, fine. But the fact that you're attached to Canelo, the fact that you're attached to Anthony Joshua, there's prestige in that, man, because those guys are the elite. Those are guys that are at the very top. You know what I'm saying? So I think it just legitimizes the product of Bellator, right? Because look, we're on DAZN. We're just all these other parties.
It really is. And then the amount of money that they've given Bellator year over year now to go do and be big things.
Too. Yeah,
it can't be understated. I love Bellator being on DAZN. And they're not a good fit on Paramount. I know Scott Coker's like, hey, we got to split both. I get it. He's got to play the game. I understand. I'm not hating, but I really believe that they're such a good fit for that. And they're going to go do that Bellator show in Hawaii, and it's going to air in the right time slot for them in those local markets. It's just so good. I have very good things to say about this.
Plus, it's a streaming service, which it seems these days everything is heading to streaming.
Yeah.
And DAZN, the platform itself is really good, and that's something that Bellator doesn't have to take care of, right? Like the UFC has to take care of UFC Fight Pass. Bellator just has to worry about putting on fights, and DAZN does the rest.
That's
you know
it.
What I'm saying?
That's it.
That's it.
I love it.